How do you fix a broken pumpkin? With a pumpkin patch. What up, dude? Coming up on Halloween.
You doing the whole pumpkin patch thing?
I don't know. You know, Brandy tried to drag me into that, and there's thankfully some good reasons we'll discuss at a future date of why we haven't done that.
Yeah.
But one of which was like a on the whim thing. The last weekend, a friend was like, "Oh, we're going to the pumpkin patch. You guys should come with us." Actually, a buddy of mine mentioned that to Brandy. And I was like, you did not just say that. Like, open me up having to go to the pumpkin patch this weekend. And then Sunday came, and she's like, we don't have to. We had a bunch of other just like stuff to do around the house and cars to fix and whatever else I was doing for everyone else that I was like, yeah, no.
Yeah, no. Don't. I mean, it was literally like October 1st, and then all of a sudden everyone apparently went to the pumpkin patch.
Yeah, some
people
like
don't waste any time. October 1st, a Saturday or something. I don't know if it like aligned up. The stars aligned for everyone. They had their pumpkin spice latte and went to a pumpkin patch and like checked that off the Instagram must-do box.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I usually am sort of like don't want to do the pumpkin patch, but then I usually tend to enjoy it when I'm there, and it's like we don't spend we're like there for a couple hours and we leave, and it's like whatever.
No, I
just have a hard time making such a big to do about getting a pumpkin. I could go like 3 minutes down the street to like Publix and get one. It's like driving an hour.
Wait, you're telling me I'm going to pay $15 for this pumpkin, and there's one for $5 at Walmart, and it's 4 times bigger.
Yes, and
you could probably carve it up, and then you could probably return it to Walmart and be like, "This pumpkin was rotted. I need a new one." And only because you messed up the carve,
right? And it's not like. I don't feel like my kids enjoy it so much that they're not like, we gotta go to the pumpkin patch. It's usually like Brandy just wants to go get cute pictures of the kids.
Which I mean, I do get in that respect, but I don't social media anyway, so we're not really like.
I'm just.
I feel like I'm going to deny my kids so many life things, but they'll probably be so grateful for it when they're like my age. So like,
they'll understand it.
Thanks, Dad, for not taking me. You're like, you're welcome.
I've just been tired lately. I've just been like extra stuff.
Oh, do you have like 4 kids under 5?
No.
Just
okay.
2.
Just 2
okay.
under 10.
I didn't know you were so worn out from all the keeping your tribe alive.
Yes. I know you're not. I know you're not probably aware of and how I feel.
Wait, your kids like shower and bathe themselves
and feed themselves.
Oh, okay.
They even make me coffee in the morning.
Wow.
And somehow I'm still tired.
That must be. Maybe they're not making the coffee strong enough. There's your problem.
They're giving me decaf. Is that what it is?
Oh, Travis, we got to remember that for April Fools. Yeah, have Cameron make him decaf and he doesn't know it. He's like, man, this sucks. Like, funny. This coffee just doesn't seem to be doing it for me. I'm on my 4th cup.
Oh man, yes,
decaf.
Yes. Anyways,
what's the point of decaf?
I don't know.
Like, I like the flavor of coffee, just regardless.
Smells good.
All the things. But I don't know if I'd go out of my way to drink it if there wasn't caffeine.
I feel like that's the only reason it exists.
Like, I'm one of those people that can't have coffee like at dinner. You know, like I wish I could. My father-in-law, I'm like, oh, you want an espresso? And I'm like, bro, I'll be up all night. Like, he's like, yeah, I'll be asleep in an hour. I'm like, I wish I could do that. Cause like I would, but again, like he's not drinking decaf. Like if we're going to do it, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Decaf. I mean, I know some people are a little sensitive to caffeine and stuff. So I mean, I could appreciate the like one-offs.
Yeah.
But like to have a whole market for it.
Speaking of coffee, did you see that Evan Hafer and Matt Best were on Joe Rogan podcast recently? Yeah. I watched some of it. I haven't gotten through all of it. I kind of watch 20 minutes here and there before bed or whatever. But it's just super interesting. I mean, we've talked with Evan before and hasn't come. He's probably one of the nicest dudes we've met that had just like seemed like a super nice, genuine guy. And he comes across the same way on Joe Rogan's podcast where, you know, a lot of the Black Rifle stuff comes across very like aggressive in a way, in like a fun, crazy, cool way. But he's such a chill, calm, mellow, just like simple kind of guy. But he is an absolute coffee geek.
Yeah.
On to like to the next level. And he talks about so much of it on the podcast and how like everyone in the military made fun of him because they were like, oh, this hipster guy making coffee, you know.
Yeah. And then they're all like, can I get a job? And you're like,
yeah. But it's incredible. It's incredible what he's been able to build just on the passion of coffee and his pursuit of that. And he talks about how like none of it had anything to do with trying to build a big company or make all the money or any of that kind of stuff. He's just like, I just love coffee and like trying to like, he's like, I can go to any degree of complexity or trying to refine any part of the process I want, from the farming to the roasting to the this to the that. And he's like, he's just obsessed with it. And it's really cool.
I love coffee.
Yeah. So
I live on it.
Listen to that podcast. It's interesting.
No, they're cool dudes for sure. I drink it. Murdered Out's my brand. I just like it's weird, you know, like a dark roast actually has less caffeine than like the light ones. I guess, but so it's like, but I just love like I want to get punched in the face with coffee flavor. So like, let's do it. Yeah, and I'll just have 2 cups. We'll just make up for it.
There you go. What has been going on in your world? You and I haven't really even sat down and talked much lately. One, we haven't done a podcast in a while. Which
correct.
Is the thing. But we hardly even talk much anymore. We're like so busy doing our own things in the office that we talk about like some business stuff for an hour and then we go our separate ways and then that's it. Like,
yeah, no, we're my kids are back in their daycare 4 days a week. That's been good. You know, a little different in the beginning on how we take them to school and take their temperature, but they're not making them the kids aren't wearing masks and stuff.
Oh, that's nice.
So you can just tell it's really helped the older boys. They're still like just full throttle at home, but they were starting to lose their mind, rightfully so. I think everyone's kind of finally hit that tipping point of like, oh, if we all isolate and we're at home all the time, we're all just going to be depressed and sad. Like, as a society, you actually need to interact with people. It's actually healthy. So, yeah, I think it's even harder for kids because they just can't quite comprehend it all anyway. So, it's been interesting to see them be like talking about their friends and like their school was out yesterday for I don't know why. But it was a random Wednesday. They were like,
it's a teacher work day.
Not doing it today. But they went to the park and like one of the kids from their school was there and they're like, what's up? So it was kind of cool. One, the wife was like, oh, our kids actually know how to talk to people. They're not weird. It's like, yes.
The funniest part about kids is like when they're in that like 3-year-old time and they like you go to a restaurant or something and they see other kids and then they just like awkwardly stare at each other and you're like you know that person from school, like go say hi, and they just like sit there and like stare at them like creepy and all this stuff, and then they finally get out. Even still, like Cameron's not so bad now being 9.5, but like Kendall like will be in Target and she'll see someone from school or from gymnastics or somebody she knows and she's like super scared and shy and all stuff. I'm like, that's so-and-so. Like
you walk in the classroom, like, you're going to be
she's fine. Like, no, I don't want to. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Kids are weird, funny.
Yeah, it's funny.
All the things. But,
funny like that.
But it was, you could just tell, like, I think that was kind of the highlighting the fact that, like, oh, they actually need that interaction. So that's been good. Saving, obviously, our brain space, too, because, going on 6 months there of going from the wife being pregnant to the wife, us having the 4th kid, everyone being healthy, but the first 3 months of sleep deprivation and everything else while running the business and trying to accomplish everything. So it's been good to have at least a little bit more time in the morning, at least for her. Obviously.
Chilled, less chaotic. A little less chaotic.
Kind of let you. Have the energy for the afternoon,
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, I don't know. I've been working.
Yeah. The well, I want to ask. So how's Thomas doing? The new one.
Let's get an
update.
The new one,
the new shiny sparkly one.
Exactly. It's kind of funny. Like, so the twins are 22 months older than our middle one now, and like they're the twins are just now really accepting Anders because he's a bigger kid in my family. Compared to other kids, he's average. But so and he's like his sentences and everything else are really
He's
talking really well, and he holds his own. Like he'll just go up to him and just knock him out. I mean, it's awesome. I'll be like, he hit me. I'm like, he's 2.5. Get over it, bro. Like, don't try to sit on his head. They've been accepting him a lot more, which is kind of cool to see. But like when we first brought Anders home, it was just like I mean, as far as they were concerned, like, where's the trash can? Let's put him in it, And like up until literally like I think like the one good takeaway from being kind of isolated was like they had to be around him,
Yeah.
And I think that's helped like I guess their kind of relationship. But Thomas, they're like, oh, can we give Thomas a hug? Can I just sit and talk to him? And it's like
a little bit older now, they kind of get it a little bit more.
Like,
well, because I feel it's like when they were younger, right? When Anders was born, they were still needy, needed that attention. It was all about them. They didn't care about anyone else. Like, I need this attention. I need mom. I need dad. and there was 2 of them. So, and they're like connected, So yeah, I could see that where they're like, I don't care about Anders. Like, it's all about us.
And they still kind of like at times will be like, foot to the face. But
yeah.
Speaking of foot to the face, we'll come back to that in a second. But Thomas is finally sleeping through the night. So we got the twins were really good sleepers. They're still really good sleepers. Anders was not a good sleeper. He's decent now. But yeah, he's kind of going to bed 8, I'm waking him up at 7:30 now. So kind of
awesome.
finally hit that,
that
which we didn't expect. So
breaking point where it finally,
yeah.
That's awesome.
Though you still kind of do that whole like look at the monitor and you're like, all right, I've had like 3 other of these kids. Like I know, but like, can you just wiggle a toe? Give me something.
Show me you're alive.
Show me you're alive.
Yeah.
You still have to do those like stop and you're like, let me. Oh, I saw the arm move. Okay, cool.
I still do that with my kids. Like I don't really. It's not like I have monitors in their rooms or anything crazy, But like when I come home late at night, 11:30, whatever, and like coming back from a trip or something like that, I'll like walk in the rooms, check on them. I'll try to give them a kiss or something when I get home. But like I always like hover over them, like because like Kendall sleeps in the weirdest positions. Like is this kid okay? Like she sleeps in the strangest positions, and I usually try to like fix her without waking her up, and she'll make a big. I'm like, okay, you're still breathing.
See, like the twins. Actually, I have pool noodles under their sheet because they got like twin beds, right? They could they're actually in big boy beds, right? But we put a pool noodle in it because like they literally like their heads just like they start to rotate like a counterclockwise or doesn't matter depending on what side of the room they're on because they sleep in the same room. But like I had to like get them because I kept like look at the monitor and like their head would be like off the
side of the bed.
Like how do I like so I put a pool noodle so they just constantly like just
shifting around.
They're all over the place.
Active,
Meanwhile, Anders, we call him like we literally are like, oh, is Anders Andering? Like he has 2 positions. He either goes full Rocket Man, just like face down Rocket Man, or you would think this guy is the biggest porn star. He literally, ever since he was a kid, he puts both of his hands behind his head and just full Monty spread eagle and just lays on his back, and he'll do that for hours. Literally, like check me out, bro. It's just, it was like, oh, Anders is Andering. I literally have like screenshots throughout like his 2.5 years of like him doing the Anders.
That's so funny.
He's just like, I'm like, man, I want to be that cool.
It's like Al Bundy.
He's just
like hands in your pants.
He's just, but like he's just full body. And so Thomas, now like we got him in like the swaddle that's like his hands are still free, but he's kind of like it's like a sleeping bag, but his hands are free. And like he started like half Andering, so he'll sleep with one arm behind his head. It's hilarious,
so funny.
But like you're just like, are you breathing? It's still a thing, but yeah, the Anders. But anyways,
Anders.
I want to be that cool when I grow up.
My kids are back in school, so we've been doing homeschool up until last week. They started back to school 2 days a week, which is great because it gives Brandy 2 days off. Yep. Mondays and Tuesdays, she's like, oh, I can breathe. I can get some stuff done around the house. I can do laundry. Otherwise, she's like sitting there, running back and forth. We created the school classroom situation downstairs, which was great, except for it's a pain in the ass because this kid's got this thing going. This kid's got this thing going. They don't want them wearing headphones or something. I don't know. It's weird. So then you got these 2 loud devices, and then it's distracting to the other one. And this one's like, turn that down. This one, da-da. So now we get them started in the morning, get them both logged in, and then Cameron goes upstairs to her desk in her room. But then that means myself, if I'm home, or Brandy is like, upstairs, downstairs. Hey, is everything good? You doing what you're supposed to do? Downstairs. Hey, is everything good? You doing what you're supposed to do? And then at the same time, you've got like Kendall being in first grade is like, you've got to make sure she's doing what she's supposed to do and that you understand what she's supposed to be doing, because when that Zoom call ends, there's like an assignment and you have to help them navigate to that through all the stupid class link things and all this crap because they don't know how to do it. I hardly know how to do it. Brandy's still trying to figure it out sometimes because it's like different every day. It seems like, well, we're trying something new. So now you have to navigate through these different things to get to it. And then you have
video
to
tutorials for the parents. And
you have, well, they don't even do that. But
the parents are supposed to work and
then
ridiculous.
They're supposed to do some assignment and then they have to use the iPad to take a picture of it and then submit it through this other thing. It's a pain in the ass. You think Kendall's going to do that on her own? No. So
you could barely do it.
You're constant. Now it's like upstairs check on Cameron, downstairs check on Kendall, upstairs, downstairs, upstairs. So you can't just like, I'll do a load of laundry while they're doing school. You're just like constantly like monitoring all of it, which is very frustrating.
I know a few people that have.
Oh my God, I have a funny story to tell in just a second. But here's the other downside. Now they're back in school 2 days a week, which is great for those couple days. But when they're home. So what they're doing is splitting it up. So half the class goes Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, everyone does virtual learning. And then Thursday and Friday, the other half of the class goes into school. So they're splitting the classes up. That also means that the teacher is occupied with the in-class stuff Wednesday and Thursday, which means Brandy has to teach them Wednesday and Thursday. And they're calling it self-learning or something. But basically, because the teacher's doing in-class, Brandy has to be the teacher to do all the things. So she's like, can we just do all or nothing? Can we just be all virtual or all in school? Because I'm not a teacher and this sucks.
Yeah. Well, and y'all are in a fortunate position where she can be home and do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And buy all the damn equipment to be able to do it and have high-speed internet to be able to do it. It's ridiculous.
It's unbelievable. There's no reason. And the kids are like, "What? I don't understand the difference. Like, why can't we just be in school?" I'm like, "Great question. Great question. I don't know the answer to it."
Yeah, it's. I'm a little trying to figure out how to say this. I'm very concerned for the underlying problems that are not showing themselves right now for all the kids.
It'll be 5 years down the road that it's...
For all the kids emotionally, mentally, like from like actual learning, but also the emotional damage. Like,
they're not learning anything through it. It's such BS. And I've talked to other teachers about it. And they're the same thing. Like I got a buddy of mine who teaches high school. He's like, it's a joke. It's a complete joke. No one's learning anything. No, you can't like build up to a learning point because
you spend half the class doing technical difficulties, and then it's like I don't know. Here's an assignment.
There's times where like the kids will click on their Zoom link to get in, and like Zoom servers are just overloaded and they can't get in, and then they miss the whole class. And the whole time I'm sitting there trying to refresh and restart computers and what's going on? It's the internet. And it's just Zoom, like being stuck on stupid. And they've just lost the whole class. And I'm ready to throw a computer through the window. And you have to use the computer the school provided, which is a complete piece of garbage. It's awful. It's terrible. But anyways, let me tell you this funny story. Last week, so there I was. No, Brandy had something to do like Friday last week. So she's like, hey, I need you to stay home and do school with the kids because I've got to do this thing. I was like, okay, cool. Oh, she went out of town. She had like this girls' weekend scheduled or whatever. So she's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, long weekend with some friends out of town. And so I'm teaching the kids. And the teacher is waiting for some of the kids to log into class. And so she's just passing time. She starts playing I Spy with the kids on this Zoom call. And she's like, I spy something green. And the kids are supposed to find something green and like show it on the screen. And I spy something round and they, whatever. Well, then she's like, I spy something big. And Kendall takes the iPad and like turns it to my giant gun safe that's like right next to her. I was like, oh, that's not good. And I'm like, that's big, but oops. I'm like, I wonder how they feel about that, but whatever. Mm-hmm. So then after school, we ran some errands. I had to take Cameron to the orthodontist to get her braces adjusted and all that kind of stuff. And we get home, and my neighbor comes out. She's like, "Hey, Mr. Brody, there was a police officer here looking for you." I'm like, "That's not good." So I like check the cameras on the house, and I'm like, "Dang, there was a cop like in my driveway for like a few minutes." I'm like, "Man, that's." I wonder if they were here because Kendall showed the gun safe to the school. I'm like, "Dang, did they really send a cop out here to like check on things? Like this is like, here we go." Explain this one. I feel like there was something else that I was like, I feel like there was two things that I was like wondering about. Anyways, but then I started to realize, I'm like, wait a minute. This police car is a Bluffton PD car, and I don't live in the town of Bluffton. I live in the county. Mm-hmm. So what the hell's a Bluffton? I'm like, what did I, man, I'm like,
who did I piss off?
I'm like, man, I'm starting to like really kind of sweat bullets. So then after looking at the cameras, I saw him walk up to the front door. And then he like left something, and I was like, "Did he just like serve me some papers or something? What is it?" So then I go up to the front door and I open it, and it's just like a plastic bag full of books from the school for Kendall's, like had her name on it, and they were just delivering like school materials, and I was like, she's the school resource officer is who it was, but it was like,
so they go in and checking on kids as well, make sure everyone's.
I'm sure they do some level of that, but. They send teachers in neighborhoods, wearing our same shirts. They send, I think, teachers from certain neighborhoods or resource officer. They just try to distribute some of that stuff.
Gotcha.
This was before they started.
Oh, they send the cop to the county people. You on the other side of the tracks. We need to send the cop out there into the boonies here.
Well, but apparently they do check on stuff. We had a cop buddy of mine was here yesterday. Actually, and I told him that story. I was like, "Yo, Officer Grant scared the crap out of me." Mm-hmm. And I told him, he's like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "Yeah, we deliver stuff." And he's like, "We'll check on stuff too if we need to." But anyways, it was funny.
But the long and short of it is, virtual learning's a joke.
It is. I can't imagine that anyone's really learning anything meaningful through that. It's super frustrating.
Yeah. To say the least.
So, anyways.
But yeah, I mean, what else could I do with them, I guess?
Yeah.
Just gotta make some lemon out of them lemonades. All right, make lemonade out of lemonade. See, I'm butchering my own. Damn. I was probably served decaf this morning, so I've only had one cup of coffee.
Yeah,
need to step up my game.
Yeah. Well, can you?
Well, then again, but we've already talked about my Alexisms on this.
You've got plenty of those.
We got plenty of them. We'll just add lemonade out of lemon or whatever. I just butchered. I don't know, Travis. Repeat it back to me when you
gotta
make
listen lemons out of lemonade.
I'm gonna make lemons out of lemonade. I'm gonna reverse engineer that shit.
At least you can hear yourself say these things now.
What?
Let's give a quick update. I think it's super interesting, and I know you didn't really want to talk much about it, but I think it's really interesting. And I think you're probably more self-conscious about it than I think you probably should be, because you probably feel like you're 100 years old. And
well, I'm 100. Well, I've also been dealing with. So I've had hearing issues ever since I was born. Mainly in my 1 year, I've had like 13 sets of tubes. I was the kid who always had to throw the football into all the other kids jumping into the pool because I couldn't dive underwater. Because I had like a tube, it was like, all right, let's wrap your head up with a a Speedo with an earplug and do all this other stuff. And I'm like, I ain't got time for that shit. I'm 5. Like, give me the football, Yeah. So it was always, I guess that's probably allowed me to be pretty independent. Like, I can be left alone in the woods and like whatever.
Interesting.
I like people, but I don't.
You don't need to be with them.
Yeah, like I mean, for a certain amount of time, I think is stems probably from the fact that all these other kids would be like, all right, we're gonna go like swim, and I'll be like, cool, I'll sit on the dock,
Right.
But
that explains so much.
But anyway, so
interesting.
So apparently, my situation was when I was born, my head started growing faster than my ear canal, which created kind of like a vacuum and like sucked my eardrum into my head more than it created a vacuum. So you put a tube in there, release the pressure, right? So sorry, I'm getting. If it sounds stuffy, the ragweed down here is just destroying me with my allergies, but
COVID.
So you're welcome. The COVID's free. So
tubes to relieve pressure.
Yes,
of
and
vacuum.
so just through that, and the water gets in, infection, right? And just
we dealt with
rinse,
that. Kendall
rinse,
ended up
cycle,
with tubes
repeat,
and,
right? So whatever that. Another expression. I don't know if I even said that right, but I think everyone gets the point listening. Rinse and repeat, whatever. I put it in a dishwasher and I hit start. It is surprising how many dishes you do when you have kids. Like I was doing it this morning, and I was just like, I lost 15 minutes of my life here, and there's like 3 people eating. Like, why am I still cleaning up crumbs on the floor? Like, you had a waffle.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I got a lot of infections, and then so just the scarring from more tubes. And then I guess some disease or some kind started like eating at my like ear bones. And so like I had to get a prosthetic ear bone. They can do that apparently.
How did they do that? How old were you when that happened? You were pretty young.
The first time, I think I was like 10, and then I had one when I was a sophomore in college. I went
twice?
Yeah. 2
prosthetic ear bones?
Yeah, they like took one out, and then I went up to like Michigan for the guy who like invented the thing.
What?
Yeah. And I couldn't fly on a plane afterwards, so I then had to drive from Michigan back here.
because the pressure.
Yeah. So that was cool.
Jeez.
But I was all doped. It was like the day after, so I was just on pain pills and just.
Did your dad go with you or something, drive you? Or?
Yeah, I flew up with my mom. My dad flew up, and actually Emily flew up with her. We just started dating, so it was kind of like, whoa, hey.
Yeah.
But again, it's always wonderful to you want to be the tough guy, cool guy. You're in college, and you're like, oh, there's this attractive female. I'm trying to. Oh, yeah, I can't hear you. Let me lay on you.
Can you say that in my good ear?
I just, yeah. And then because of all the scarring from all the tubes, I actually have a cadaver's eardrum. Apparently, they can do that too. But so, anyways, my it's always just kind of been like a part of me.
Yeah,
like my right ear is normal in that regards. So I was always been able to like overcompensate or pretend enough or read lips well enough when but I've noticed with kids that like as they try to whisper and talk and do all the kid stuff, I'm struggling a lot more with all the other noise. So I finally broke down and was like, all right, because I'm always tired, and I just assumed it's kids and everything else, but the doctors suggested that there could be some level that like I'm constantly like more or less flexing. Like my brain is on flex because I don't want to share with the world that I have a disability of some kind. So I overcompensate for it. So I'm constantly just like on edge to make sure like if you were to say something to me that I'm able to hear you. Mm-hmm. And they were like, well, you're probably just like your brain's probably just burnt out by the end of the day because you're straining to hear your kids, you're straining to hear stuff at work.
Similar thing happens with people's eyes when their eyes start to go. They start straining their eyes and squinting and doing whatever they need to do to be able to see what they're looking for, which is exhausting.
Yeah.
You end up with headaches and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So I finally broke down and got a hearing aid for my left ear,
which is super fascinating. Because the technology in hearing aids is like crazy now.
It is.
So is this a hereditary thing, you think? Because your dad's got this too. But is it to that he's just like old and lost hearing? Sorry, Mike.
I hope he's not listening. I would say that
crazy old man.
I would say that no, I don't think the hearing's hereditary. My mom, trust me, they could hear everything. And speaking of, we'll have to circle back to kids hearing everything because I've got a fun story about me getting my mouth rinsed out with soap recently. So so we will circle back to that.
So you get this hearing aid.
But it's like it's not to my prescription level because you put it in and it's like the world, like I feel like someone's just like doing like symbols in my ear right now. So like I came home the first day after I went to the doctor, came to work, and all of a sudden I was like, dang man, this AC shit is loud. And then like Jay's over there making coffee. I'm like, can you calm down, please? It's like everyone's like walking up my stairs, and I'm like, just walk more softly. But
it's like, oh, you hear everything else we all hear now.
Yeah, because your brain, a normal person's brain is accustomed to hearing it, right? So like your brain, whether you know it. So I guess a good example is your nose is always in your vision of your eyes, apparently. But your brain knows to basically blur it out, so you're not just staring at the tip of your nose. It's the same thing kind of with hearing. Like you get accustomed to being able to hear different sounds, and so like while you kind of hear it, your brain isn't really processing it directly, I guess. So I came home for the first day with it in, and like I literally I was like I felt like I was that like the animal that's like like a cat that's like scared and it's like all like hinged up because I like walked in, I was like, and I looked at the wife, I was like, is it always this loud? She's like, welcome to my world. I'm like, I'm about to lose my shit. I'm like, you need to shut up. And she's like, no, they're just talking normal. I'm like, they need to volume down. Alexa, volume down too. Like, man. And so it's just been an adjustment period, but it worked out great though. When the kids were crying in the monitor, I just roll over to my good ear, and then I didn't have to hear the monitor. So, so I was like, I had an instant like when I sleep, I can tune it out. Like we could be in a noisy hotel, and I'm like, doesn't bother me.
That's too funny.
But yeah, so it's an adjustment period. It is self-conscious in that regards. I didn't think that I was, I guess vain is the right word in that regards, but at the same token, you're
like wearing a device that really isn't like terribly visible. You'd have to like stand behind you and look at the back of your head because it's awfully small.
Yeah,
and like inside your ear, it's really not visible. It's like a clear, very thin clear wire. I didn't even notice until you mentioned. You were like, "Yeah, I got this thing. I'm trying to get used to it." And I was like, "You want me to scream in your ear?"
No, you're talking plenty loud.
Is this the same one that your dad has that has like Bluetooth and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think I got a newer model, but yeah,
that's cool.
It works well if I'm sitting here. Like it is kind of weird because all of a sudden I'll just answer the phone and you just start talking, but it's like directly in my head.
It's kind of like Aaron with that cochlear implant where it like, because he's deaf and it's like directly wired to his brain.
Yeah,
it, like,
I mean definitely not that.
But yeah, it's interesting because now this thing that's like in your ear, like that's not an Apple AirPod, is taking your call and giving you notifications. And
well, so whatever. Where was I? I was.
Isn't that wild?
I was walking somewhere and like. I definitely think I like threw off whoever I was talking because if you look at me, it's like it's like it's like I'm like the dude in New York City walking down the street just hollering stuff. You know what I mean? I'm like and they're like because you're used to seeing like does someone have headphones in or AirPods or whatever, and like it doesn't look like I have anything in, but yet I'm like just talking to space.
Yeah.
But,
it's really funny. This is like sort of off topic, but talking about throwing people off. Remember when Bluetooth like headsets were a thing back in the day, and it was like a big thing that you wore on the side of your ear? And I used to wear one in the shop when I was working on cars all the time because I was like dirty, greasy hands, had to answer the phone, and I was able to just like answer that and like talk, and I had like oil all over my arms, and it was great. But I hated the way it looked. And then there was like this like sort of stereotype that sort of became with those things, and it was like sort of this D-bags type stereotype. I feel like maybe I'm wrong about that, but now what's that? You're not wrong. Then then AirPods, and now it's like the wireless earbuds are so popular again. It's like they've progressed into what they are now.
I feel
and it's like everyone has them.
I always think of the meme. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's like this guy's in like a business suit. He's got his briefcase, like stereotype like briefcase, but he's got rollerblades on. He's in like action mode. And it's like the memes over like, I'm ready for business.
That's funny.
I feel like that's you, like with your it's like, I'm ready for business.
I think I'm gonna start wearing one of those in the gym,
just to see what
like
people
the old school
it
like goes halfway across your cheek, you know. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's an adjustment. But the main catalyst, I mean, besides when the doctor was telling me like, oh, like your brain might not be as stressed as much, because I felt like I've got like I struggle with patience anyways, you know what I mean? So so if I'm home tired and I come home to like 4 kids, you're kind of like, oh, like I actually need to be I need to be even more patient, right? Mm-hmm. And like I don't want to be snappy at my kids and stuff. So which will lead into the mouth out with soap. So but so I'm kind of, I was like, well, I want to do that, but then I was like, man, like if I'm home by myself, like like if someone's like starts crying or doing something else, like if there's another noise, like I also don't want to be in a position where like I don't hear like the door open or you know, just whatever. So I was like, you know, I finally just kind of had to swallow the pride, I guess, in that regards, and was like, you know what, like this is more than me just maybe missing out on some aspects of life, you know, like I didn't really care about hearing the birds, but but more in the sense of, you know, just like or if my kids are trying to talk to me, I don't want to constantly be like, what. So
it's always fun. Like my grandfather's like deaf, and he's like, he's 99, right? And he's like so deaf, and when you talk to him, he like just like starts laughing or smile and nod or whatever, because he's just like, I don't know what you're saying, but I know you're saying something, so I'm just gonna react. And you're like,
no, that is my grandmother. I'll be like, here, meet Thomas. He's like, Anders.
Like, no, that's the other one. But yeah, it's funny. But you don't want to be that guy.
No. So yeah,
I have a similar thing recently that I didn't care about until recently, and it's because I went and talk to somebody. So my, 2 kids are super stressful. I blame it on them. I blame it on Brandy. It's really just because there's a bunch of girls in my life. Anyways, I'm going bald.
Is that what I couldn't tell.
I always wear a hat. I've always worn a hat. Like, hat was one of my first words. I've worn a hat for, Travis will tell you, I've always had like this ridiculous collection of hats, although now I just wear the same hat always, but I still have a bunch of hats. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is, I'm like going bald. Like most of the people, like Travis is like half bald. My older brother's completely bald. And I've been like slowly losing hair, but haven't really like cared about it because I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'm like,
yeah,
I wear a hat anyways. I don't care. But then Brandy started making comments about it. She's like, you should look into doing something about your hair. I'm like, I don't care about my hair. And then I was getting my hair cut one day over at Joe's, and Joe made a comment. He's like, hey man, you ever look into it? He's like, oh my God, am I going, is it that bad? And then there's other times where like I see myself on video or in pictures, you're like, man, that's getting pretty thin up there, and you're kind of like, then you start to get a little self-conscious because then people are talking about it and you see yourself and you didn't really care before. And so anyways, Joe mentions it to me. I'm like, well, what do I like? And then, and another buddy of mine that I reached out to and asked him a question about it because he had some hair restoration done. And he was like, dude, it's awesome. He's like, I'm going to go do some more. It can get expensive depending on the route you go. And he's like doing it in stages because it's expensive and he needed a lot of it done evidently. And he was traveling across the country to do it from like Arizona to Atlanta or something. Anyways, so Joe over at the barbershop, he's like, yeah, you need to talk to so-and-so. And I was like, nah, he's like, oh, I'm texting him right now. I'm like, fuck, I'm like obligated now. I'm like, I'd at least follow through with this. So I go talk to him. It's actually super interesting. And I'm actually now considering some form of like hair restoration because so there's different ways to do it, right? You've got the transplants where they pull hair follicles with like a machine and then replant them. So the sides of your hair, the sides of your head don't ever go bald. Like Travis, for example, is a good way to look at this. Sorry to use you as this example. But
man.
People don't
right
go,
under it.
People
right
don't
under
go bald on the side and back of their head. It's always on the top. So they pull the hair follicle from the back and sides, like however many, just various places around. And
Will it grow back there?
I don't think they'll grow back. You just you've got so many, and maybe they do. I don't know. But then they replant them on the top of your head, and then you just grow hair, and it's natural and looks natural, and they create new hairlines and whatever. So there's like a big questionnaire and this big, huge sort of consultation of like, okay, let's talk about your hair. Let's see where it's at. How long has it taken to get to this point? Did this happen very rapidly? Has this been a slow thing?
Yeah.
Let's talk about your dad. What's his hair look like? Oh, your brothers. What are their hair like? Da da da. So he eventually was like, you're not really a good candidate for the like transplanting the hair follicles because we don't know exactly what your hairline's going to do. Like we could pull your hairline back forward where it's starting to kind of like recede a little bit back here and get thin. And it may never get worse than this at all. But we replant hair, basically replant that in the front. But then in a few years, if that hairline starts to recede and go bald back here, he's like, you're going to end up with like a handlebar across your forehead. He's like, and you don't want that. He said, but what's interesting is if you look closely, you actually have hair there still, but they're called phallus hairs, if I remember right. And it's kind of like arm hairs, really thin, light hairs that don't really grow. Like, your arm hairs get to a point and then they just don't grow anymore. Very similar to the hair on my head, especially on the back of my head. Like, this looks pretty bald, but if you feel it, it's like peach fuzz, like very thin, light hairs. So what he suggested was PRP, which is, and I started looking this up a second ago. I can't remember what it's called. Palate-rich palate-rich plasma therapy. Have you heard of this? Mm-hmm. So what they do is they draw blood. I don't know how much exactly, but they draw blood.
Are you okay with needles?
You know what's funny is that he was trying to explain this process to me. He's like, I'm gonna like inject this, blood back into you, like probably a couple thousand times into your head, and I'm like, I'm very, very scared of needles. Obviously, he's like, I didn't even think about that, but okay, so here's what we're gonna do.
Skip that whole pitch. You don't need to sell me on it.
So
on the needle part.
Yeah, so the plasma rich. What is it called? What did I say? Plasma rich what? Palate rich plasma. They take your blood and they spin it in a machine and it does something and it does some magic, separates ball. Yeah. And then they re-inject it into your head, and he said that will regenerate those hairs that are phallus hairs now, turn them back into normal hair, and then my hair, it'll be like full hair again. And it's not replacing hair or doing anything crazy. It's just getting them to grow again properly or something like that. He said the success rate is pretty good. It's not guaranteed, and it's way cheaper. It's like 3 treatments for a total of $3,000. And you may have to get like the downside is like there's like a yearly maintenance thing to it. You like have to go back every year to like inject some more blood. Most cases. So it's super interesting. And then I talked to Joe. He's like, yeah, I got a client that did it. He this dude went from like half bald to looks like John Travolta. It's insane. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, it was ridiculous. I'm like, interesting. So now that's something I'm considering.
Well, if you do that, then are you gonna stop wearing hats?
I might have to. I'll be so beautiful at that point. I might grow my hair out. What do you think, Jade? Long flowing hair.
Just like Jade.
Dude, yeah. I will put it in a braid.
Yeah, so I was like, interesting. So I'm gonna talk to him. I might try to like film it or document it or something, because I think like these are kind of stuff that people don't want to talk about, but I think everyone goes through some level of like that self-conscious thing. You hit a certain point in your life and you're like, well,
I guess I
didn't really care, but I don't really want to be bald, or whatever the case is. Or some people just get to a certain point and you're like, fuck, I'm just owning it and like shaving it off or whatever, and you're like, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's really interesting, and I'm considering it, but not making any jumps on it yet. But it was a really interesting conversation. So that's my experience with.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be gray.
What?
Can we get a group discount?
Yeah,
group
maybe
discount.
I wonder. You'd have to get transplants probably.
Yeah, maybe. It's pretty. I mean, they're still
Yeah, but it's not like full though. It's like so thin. The
good news
is
the doctor once thinks he can analyze your head.
I'm a pro, dude. I'm clearly a pro.
I'm gonna get my MD on the back.
The good news is where your hairline is. Like it's not gonna go further than what it's done. So like, but you're spending more money to do that.
Shouldn't have bought that car.
Right? That thing's gonna be dope. All right, so you got your mouth washed out with soap.
Yeah.
I say we've all done that. Is that a common thing, or is that like something they just do?
I don't know.
In the South, or no one does it anymore. And I've threatened my kids with it not too long ago because I was like,
I'm sure
if I would have said something like that to Grandma, she would have washed my mouth out with soap. And they were like, huh? I'm like, yeah.
I think
she's like, no. I was like, oh, you have no idea.
Yeah.
Orange dial soap out of the pump, like
out of the man, liquid. Hardcore,
dude,
hardcore. You got liquid soap,
yeah.
Dang.
Phyllis Brody don't mess around.
No, man, shoot, you'd be calling like social services on your butt now. I mean, I'm always waiting for someone to mouth off to me at the grocery store. Well, granted, we don't even have to go to the grocery store now with COVID, but you know what I mean. Like, I'm just waiting for someone to be like. It's like, you tell your kids, you're like, well, we don't talk back or this. And some parent would be like, you can't say that. And be like, all right, don't repeat any of these. What the? Did you just say? Why don't you mind your business? I'm actually going to tell my kids how to teach my kids how to be respectful. Apparently you're not. So keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it started a few months ago. Apparently I came home after work. The kids were, because they're always listening, they have like the wife's hearing apparently, not mine. So they're up in the bonus room and I'm in the kitchen, and I'm sure like it was something with work, someone ripping us off, whatever it was. And I was like, these effing people doing these effing things with these effing. And that was the end of it, right? As far as the conversation with the wife and I. A few days later, I'm with the kids, and we're like playing in the bonus room with them, and I'm like, we can't do like, it's like, don't sit on Anders' head. And he's like, geez, just effing. I was like,
excuse me?
Did I just, I know I have bad hearing. Did I hear that right? Nothing. He kind of keeps going. I'm like, okay. Like, I'm not trying to make a big deal. Like, I don't want to make it a big deal. If he doesn't kind of know what he's saying or doing, then let's just see if this trend continues. So the wife takes him to a park, and there's all these alligators in the pond, and the alligators are coming up close, and the oldest by 2 minutes looks at the wife, and he's like, if the alligator like swims towards me to try to get me, can I say effing? And she's like, no. But in her head, it's like, yeah, get the effing out of there. And so it's like, all right, he just used it in the right context. So like, clearly he knows what he's saying now. So it's like, no, we don't say those words. Well, then they started, apparently, like the kid like had one of those like near death experiences on like falls and just barely misses his, like there's a I don't know where a steak knife came from, and like one of those situations. And I'm like, Jesus. So now, a few days go by, and kid stubs his toes. He's like, Jesus. I'm like, oh, gosh. So now we're all going to hell. So I'm like, we don't have Cheez-Its in the house. Just off topic. Comes to me on a whim. I'm like, Cheez-Its. And he's like, what? I'm like, well, you heard Dad say Cheez-Its. Like, we don't have Cheez-Its in the house. The cracker? Like, trying to they're too smart, but I went with that. So then now they'll be like, Cheez-Its. I'm like, don't, like, you shouldn't even say that. I'm like, I'm just digging a hole. Let's just keep going.
It's like, that's something Brandy would do. She just keeps like digging this hole deeper. I'm like, just stop. Just stop.
The wife's looking at me. She's just like, I talk to the kids in Spanish, so obviously all these English words must be coming from you. And then the father-in-law says, gosh darn it. So now they're like, gosh darn it. And I'm like, so it's like
I would take that over anything
progressing,
else.
Right?
My kids are good. They don't really say anything bad. Like if you say anything remotely, because they hear a lot of bad words and they know it's not right. And anytime like I'll we'll get in the car, I'll turn the car on, the radio will start playing. The last thing on my phone is like Gary V, and he's like going off on some rant. And it's like immediately when I turn it on, he's like, these fucking people, blah, blah. And then Cameron will be like, Daddy. I'm like, sorry.
And so now they're just kind of testing, right? So fast forward a little bit, and we got Max is doing something, and he's just like whispers it, kind of like the test. And so Emily's nursing Thomas, like kids on boob. And he's like, fucking. She's like, nope, no more warnings. Upstairs, soap in the mouth. Because we've threatened it a little bit.
Yeah.
Grabs a bar of soap, like rips this kid off the boob. He just puts him on the floor. He's just wailing. Grabs this kid's mouth, takes like a half-used bar of soap, right? Just shoves it in his mouth, closes it down. He's just crying, wailing, whatever else. The other kid says something. Pulls out the bar of soap. He's crying. Grabs the other kid. Boom. Bar of soap into his mouth. Just traumatizes him in a good way.
I can taste it right now.
Soap on the teeth.
So
you know what
bad.
I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Are you going to say bad words again? No. That's right.
Emily's so
drink
gangster.
some water. Here's a chip to rinse here's some chips to get the soap out of your mouth. Don't do this again.
I think we need to have Emily on the podcast one day.
So anyway, obviously I come home and it's like, so what happened? Mommy had to rinse the dirty words out of her mouth. You shouldn't say bad words, right? Uh-huh. No. Are you going to say bad words again? No. We're going to bed. And so we've got a big shower. We can have all the children in there. So sometimes we'll just all right, just all three kids,
just get in there.
Me, I get in the shower, hose them off, scrub them down, then we get out, right? So sometimes it's just easier than bath time. So they're all just naked, jumping around on my bed. Anders is trying to climb up. Nico just foot to face. Boom. Anders goes down, but he had so much momentum behind the kick that he rolls off the bed, corner of the nightstand, right on the side of his head. I hear the thud hit the ground. I watch the whole thing. I'm like, mainly because we're all naked. I'm about to get in the shower. I'm now got to run. I've got one kid on the ground crying because he just got a foot to the face. I've got one where I know once I turn the corner, it's going to look like we just butchered a cow. Blood's going to be everywhere. I'm going to the damn hospital tonight. I'm stitching up this kid all because he's being a jabroni because I told him not to jump on I pick him up, you know what I mean? Because he's just wailing. And then you do one of those peel backs. You're
look at it. How bad is this?
Do I see brain or not? Right? And there's nothing. And I'm like, so this is Nico, the younger twin. Anders is still crying, but I'm like, hey, you're fine. This kid just took a corner to the face. And I'm like, I didn't realize that Max was nowhere to be found. Apparently Max is a snitch. He runs downstairs, tells Emily, he's like, Daddy just said beep. He's walks upstairs. Yeah, I finally start calming everyone down. Now, remind you, Max is naked. Anders is naked. I'm naked. Nico's naked. All because we're literally stepping into the shower to hose off for bath time. And she looks at me and I'm just like, what? She's like, I heard you said some bad words. I look at Max. I'm like, that snitch. That kid. I'm like, I'm going to have to talk to you separately. And then, of course, Max is like, I guess we got to rinse the dirty words out of Dad's mouth. I'm like, actually, I got to follow through with this to prove the point. We don't say these things.
Oh, my gosh.
So, get a towel, sit down. She goes, and she's going to get the bar of soap that the kids the night before were massaging with their fingerprints in. And I was like, whoa, woman, we can prove a point here. But I need a fresh bar. We don't need to come on. I don't need a half-used massaged bar of soap. And everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm give me a fresh one. What are we doing?
Listen.
So she gets a fresh bar of soap, sticks it in my mouth. And because I know how this game works, tuck the lips under the teeth so I don't get
scrape
soap
it
in
on
the teeth.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, I'm a professional here. So she does that, puts it in my mouth, and I'm intentionally no tongue to this is going to be the best case scenario for having a bar of soap in my mouth. And of course, my kids are like traumatized because they're like, "Oh wow, Daddy's got a bar of soap in his mouth." And she's like, nope, grabs it and starts wiggling it.
Oh my gosh.
It wiggles it.
She and like, is savage.
My allergy, I'm like, hopefully that's good. Well, can we like Photoshop that out? So I like instinctively just go and like whack her hand out of it. You know what I mean? Because I'm like,
what are you doing?
And then of course Max, the snitch, is like, you hit mommy. And I'm like,
my God,
bro. And of course she's like, and I like she's rattling off in Spanish, like, yeah, like you don't need. I'm like, because I understand her, but she wants the kids to understand. So I'm like, yep, we don't hit mommy. And then I'm looking at her, I'm like, we're gonna have to have a conversation later. Like we can. She's like, we gotta make it believable. I'm like, it's believable enough. Trust me. So we get the bar of soap out, and I go and like rinse my mouth out, and we finally get in the shower. And so they're like, so now it's like, you know, like they're starting to do a little bit of like the, like you're like, don't do this. Like I'm like, well, like that's sorry for everyone listening. I didn't. It's like we don't like that's just like we don't that's talking back, and that will get you that bar of soap. And remember when Daddy got the mouth washed out with soap? But
Kendall's good for that one.
But yeah, after I'm like, what, like we proved enough of a point. What are you doing? She's like, no, they're smart. They know. I'm like, they don't know that trick yet. You don't need to wiggle the bar of soap in my mouth. Come on. So, anyways. What's awesome is like so then literally the next night I'm getting them in the bathtub, so like thankfully like I'm actually clothed. Kids are of course running around naked all over the upstairs, and like Anders out of nowhere like trips on Thomas, who's on the floor, and like lands completely on his head. I'm like watching the other kids because I'm like, all right, please don't like hit the corner of the bed again, right? And like she comes rolling and she's like, what the I'm like, but none of the kids said anything. I was like, so you get to get away with it? She's like, they almost smushed his head. I'm like, yeah. I'll rinse your mouth out with soap later.
Yeah.
But of course it didn't happen. So anyway.
You got to follow through, Alex. Oh! Sorry, I almost just spilled my water everywhere.
I almost said the F word. But
you make me want to go brush my teeth after all that mouth soap.
Man, there's nothing.
I need like 50 of those Lifesaver mints. I'm so addicted to those stupid things.
Your dentist.
What are they? Wintergreen, Winter Fresh. What are they?
Like
the green.
I love how like in big letters it's like artificially flavored. You're like, obviously.
Yeah, they're so addicting.
They are.
Gosh,
there's worse habits you could have.
Yeah,
I think we've. That's what. Oh, and so. We'll end on this. So the kid's like, so the first time I tell him, like, I'm going to rinse your mouth out with soap, Max, the snitch, he looks at me and goes, Dad, just let me do what I do. I'm like, you do what you do. I'm like, what 40-year-old are you, one? And two, like, you still can't talk back to me and say a bad word. So now I'll just, like, the wife will say something. I'll just look at her and be like, just let me do what I do.
It's so funny. Kendall will say, well, she'll hear things and be like, oh, you said a bad word. I'm like, all right, didn't I said like shoot or crap or whatever I said that because like we've pounded stuff into her head, like you don't say that or whatever. So now like anything remotely close to anything, she's like, oh, you said a bad word. So I guess I think that's probably good that they think those are bad words.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, I can say that.
I'm allowed to say that.
I can say dang, okay?
I need something. Give me something.
But anyways, yeah, let's wrap it up there. I got a bajillion things to do. I'm super pumped to get back on the podcast. We need to get back to a regular schedule now that things have, I think, kind of calming down for us. But I'm excited for that. Thanks for everyone for listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave comments, ratings, reviews, all the things that we always ask you to do. We appreciate it. And I'll see you on the next episode. I hope you enjoyed it. See you soon.
Bye.